Victoria, Swansea, Meath, Briscoe, Barry, Connemara, Meath, Caerphilly, Vale of Glamorgan, Porth. So this is what they should be starting this year. Okay. Matt, I'd like to meet Dee. You alright?
Yeah, you're right.
Dee, this development's going to be 35 homes in total, social housing. We've got a mixture of houses and apartments, and it's been looked after by our fantastic senior site manager, Matthew Harbert.
Good to meet you, mate. Thank you.
So show us around, my good man.
Yeah, go for a tour.
Just a general site strip to bring it down to formation levels, so it's a big cut and fill exercise for us. Initially when we come into the site is obviously as it as we find it. When we come in, big heavy machinery, strip it down to certain levels. I'll show you some marked out pins of where we've got the roads, the new road coming in, all that sort.
How long does this part of the process take usually?
It all depends. So obviously the size of the site would make a massive difference, and for us it's the distance between the lorries picking the muck up, tipping it and then returning.
Right.
So for example, we've got 5 lorries on turnaround. Where we're lucky in Swansea, the local tip is probably only about 15-20 minutes away.
Right.
So on average, we can probably get about 600 to 700 tonne out of here a day, which is quite a lot.
You're actually ahead of programme a minute, aren't you? Touchwood.
Yeah, touchwood.
That's always a dangerous thing to say in construction, eh?
But at the minute, to be fair, I think we struck gold with these guys. See us the first time we worked with them, and they're a really competent contractor. This is what they do. This is their bread and butter. You know? Going into big size, big muck shifts, just getting in and getting the job done.
And you'll always find that on these sites. The challenge we mentioned about people, subcontractor the same. It's a balance between a great subcontractor to drive your site forward and the budget to pay for them. Obviously, you know, it's always we've had some big delays because of failed subbies, but
like I said, hopefully as it stands a minute, we struck gold with these guys so far, you know. So if we keep the relationship going and obviously commercially it works, then these guys will be a great asset to us. We'll have a quick stroll. It's obviously pins set out to be done by setting out engineer.
Right.
And what this is demonstrating where the main front road for the new site is going to come in.
Yeah.
So what you'll have, where our blue Jupiter fence is, that will be made into the new site entrance. We've got a plot on the left-hand side and 2 plots on the right-hand side there. These are all, we always set these, we offset them, so we can come in and work in here and not lose the pins.
So the road's there, coming in.
So that's where the road's going to be. Oh, okay.
We've got a pin with the yellow caps on. That shows you where the road comes up, and if you follow it up, you've got a tyre there with another one on.
Right.
It goes up there and it turns right a bit to that tyre.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And then shoots off up to those wooden pegs at the top, you know?
Nice.
And there's houses all on the left then, around the back. Apartments here, apartments there.
Yeah. Got a big attenuation tank there, which is like a storage system for surface water. Yeah, okay. Because you can only drip so many litres into the Welsh water system at one time. You've got to store it. There's a mechanism within a manhole then that will allow some litres to come out every so often and what have you, so we don't overload the system.
Another approval needed, SAB.
Another bill to pay.
Another bill to pay, yeah, definitely. So,
we can have that.
Sure.
What you got, you see those pins coming up there? Yeah. Got one there, he's buried one there, and the next time it comes up here, look. Those wooden pegs.
Right.
What's this is a plot, is it?
This is one plot, yeah. That's one plot there, and we've dug out another 2 or 3 at the top as well.
So the level here now they're digging down to.
Yeah.
This is a plot. This be raft foundations here, isn't it?
Raft foundation. They're all raft foundations, yeah.
The whole site now.
The whole site is raft foundations, yeah.
Because there was a risk of this turning into piling, wasn't it? Because of the coal mining.
Yeah. Oh, really?
We've had to do extensive coal mining, grouting, isn't it?
Grouting, yeah. So we've had a company called Apex come in, 4 big holes basically down, find the fissures and just fill them full of cement.
And there was a void at the beginning of our site, isn't there?
There's a big coal slit at the front there, so we literally pumped for like 3 days into I'll go and show you one of the holes there.
It's like an abyss, just
pumping money down there, basically, wasn't it? But,
100 grand.
So see this plot here. What size house is going on that plot?
This is apartments, I think, isn't it?
This one No, this is apartments. The next one down.
Apartments.
This is the house.
This is the house.
This is a brick.
Oh, pair of semi, yeah? Two, so two, 3 beds, is it probably? Yeah.
3 beds here.
Yeah, I was going to say that's quite a big plot for one house.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah. I tell you what though, what a misconception, right? The actual standard you have to build for social housing is higher than private in terms of like the minimum standard requirement. So like normal, medium, mid-market housing. And lower market housing for private, social housing is actually better. The only thing that lets it down is just they're finished sometimes on the kitchen and bathroom for maintenance purposes. But yeah, these are actually 83. If it's a 3 bed, this will be about 93 square meters. 93 square meters each house. Whereas a private development, you could get away with like 80 square meters. So they get that extra space.
This will reduce. This will reduce by a metre all the way around. So what we do, we over dig, so we've got working space outside of the area then. So this is always at least a metre or whatever offset they've set bigger.
Okay.
So we'll put shuttering within that excavation.
Yeah.
Then the foundation.
So they started digging this plot as well then?
Yeah, this one's done. This one's done. This one's got a step foundation in it.
I was going to say the level's coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what you notice. The site rises from the front to the back. The site all rises. What happens? We bring the foundations up with that as per engineer's design. You know?
Yeah. So another 2, 3 beds are going. Yeah.
This is one of the best parts I love about construction, right? We're here now and all you can see is a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
We've pumped 100 grand of concrete into an abyss.
Yep.
It's disappeared. No one can see that.
No.
We've dug a hole in the ground that just looks like, it's just...
Well, yeah.
But give it, several months from now, it'll be a house here. And when the site's several months in, bring the programme forward.
So there's 35 houses going here, right?
Yeah.
With apartments too. What's the typical length of time for a site this size? Well, how long should it take, permitting the weather's going to be okay and you don't run into loads of issues?
So if Persimmon, for example, right?
Yeah.
Persimmon would look to flip a house around from bucket in the ground to handover within about 20 weeks.
Wow.
20 weeks.
Within about 20 weeks. But that is like a stupidly fast pace, and it's...
That's what
I wouldn't say it's manageable. It's difficult to do something like that,
Yeah.
Really difficult. But what you got to be mindful of, you have to weigh up time against quality and all that sort of stuff. We all know what comes with Persimmon. They've all got that procedure that they're not. Obviously, we want to give a quality build. So we're not looking to push the 16, 20 weeks.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously we want to get done as quick as we can. We've got to have the quality that comes with it. So a site this size, 35 units, I think we've got
18 months, is it?
80 weeks, I think it is.
18
weeks for the whole site.
80 weeks for the whole site.
80 weeks for the whole site.
Yeah, for the whole site, yeah.
For the whole site.
I think about a year and a half, just over a year and a half, isn't it?
How much of the sites these days are like modular?
Or volumetric, so modular / volumetric.
It's starting to go that way, just because it's a quicker process.
So the problem you've got with volumetric is 2 things. One, social housing, right? It's the price point is on the lower end. So you've got to be very careful with costs. And right now it is still more expensive because if you think about it, they add double bubbling on transport and stuff like that. But more importantly, you've got the company itself, the overhead, the factory's got to run. And it's still, even though volumetric has been around for prefabricated housing has been around for so long, prefabricated construction was actually around in the William the Conqueror time. I don't know if you know that. They used it as defences, brought in prefab defences. But anyway, in terms of it's too expensive. A minute. There's problems with securitization, so there's banks still saying whilst they'll give money for it, they might not let a whole portfolio be overexposed to volumetric because of the uncertainty on maintenance. But one of the biggest problems by far, is the cash flow problem of it. It's like if you're a modular factory and you're building these building these homes, and you've got to incur 70%. On average, the whole site's cost, 70% of the cost is incurred in the factory now. So before it comes to site, so they need to get funded, right? So then the client's got to fund them. But if they go out of business, it's very difficult for another company to step in and finish a modular build, whereas a timber frame off-site, if someone goes bust as timber frame, there are literally dozens of companies that can come in, take that material that you've got a vesting certificate for, take that material, take it to their factory and finish it.
Yeah.
Whereas volumetric, you know, if you're doing 60 blocks and they go out of business,
Yeah.
it's really hard.
So I heard that like Taylor Wimpey, a lot of the roofs that they were using now, they were modular completely on the roof.
I'm a carpenter by trade,
Right.
so I've worked on building modular roofs off-site. So what we've done is we've set a jig up on site, which will be the same size as a wall plate, and literally build it all, brace and batten it all up, and literally just drain it in.
Yeah.
Roofing is probably the easiest modular way of doing it.
And they
less risk again in that, you know, and it's just literally just picking it up and putting it on.
And they do modular pods as well, bathroom pods, like the hotels you see them all the time. But volumetric is being used a lot, especially on the commercial hotel side. It's just the price point and some of the securitization and funding factors is still limiting growth in lower end residential housing.
Right.
But hope it might, you know, it's on its way.
We will end up
Yeah.
We will end up that way. Just health and safety wise as well. Look how easier it is to build something on a nice level floor and a nice warm unit.
Yeah.
Come onto site. Imagine having to bring all those bathroom suites, all those kitchens in up here,
Yeah.
offload them and put them in where you can build it in a nice warm factory, lift it up, pull it in,
Nice,
and it's
yeah.
done.
This would be timber frame, wouldn't it? Or SIP?
Timber frame.
This would be timber
They're all
frame.
timber frame apart from the apartment
Masonry.
traditionally.
All right, yeah.
You can see the pins turns down here to a hammerhead and then goes to a plot in the corner, plot there, and then plots down that way. So.
Wish I'd give you the microphone now, mate.
So also, we talk about modular. I'm not sure if you know much about 3D print.
Yeah.
I know China, I almost went to see them in New York, but the guy let me down. But I've seen that in New York, China, there's quite a few places now that's moved towards 3D print.
Yeah.
And of course, technology is deflationary, so at some point, you're going to remove a lot of the workforce by doing that. I think there's one person manning the machine, another person making sure it was right. But how far away do you think we are in the UK from 3D print?
From my perspective, the one thing unfortunately about construction, if you look at it against other industries, is so far behind in innovation. It is quite a slow moving industry. I mean, we're still building with same methods they've been using over 100 years. But the problem is also with construction is there is so many regulatory bodies involved. And we talked about red tape, but you know, if you think about it, people live in homes, so there's fire, there's sound, there's damp to consider. There's obviously building regs itself, but there's the funding side of things. There's surveyors, inspectors that have not been experienced with it. More importantly, the workforce itself, you know, doesn't really want to go down that route because they'll be out of jobs. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that are pushing against. But in terms of 3D printing, I've seen it.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll work in this country just because of the unpredictable weather. That's the only thing. You know, you go to a nice warm climate, Spain or the Med or wherever you are down that way.
Tenerife, sunny all year.
Sunny all year, 100% worth. You set your jig up, get your frame up, and it just pulls it for you. But I just don't know if it would work in this country just because of unpredictable weather.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff that you see like on YouTube, it shows like the weird like ripple finish, but the ones in New York, they was you get to pick, right, if you want like a clean finish or the traditional 3D print. And this one house had everything modernized and clean, and then everything was built as well. The stuff that they had inside, like I think they did it modular, so it was off-site. So they printed the house, and then they just pulled all this stuff in, and the house looked crazy, and it just looked like a modern house.
Caterpillar did, and they built a machine that just basically a bricklayer machine. So it builds the house itself as a, you know, you have someone loading the mortar and the bricks, but other than that, it builds the house as a masonry construction. So there's definitely these bits, but personally, if you ask me, I say we're many years away from that actually coming in. You know, look how long they've been trying just to get off-site timber frame, like a volumetric style, the next stage, actually to work mainstream. You know, they've been at that for decades, and it's still.
There's a lot because of the health and safety stuff and like the risk they would associate with allowing just technology to do it. Do you think it's like, you know, this is the way we've always done it, this works?
It's 100% a lot of that. What you'll find is you'll have a lot of grey hair still in the areas where they're looking at stuff like this, where you need the new generation to come through, which think like that and think, right, actually there is a way. 3D printing is a method that could potentially be used, but you've still got the grey hair doing it. They're bricks and blocks, and men doing it the old school method. You know?
One of the biggest problems, in my opinion, that we've experienced ourselves in this is the investment that you need to put in pre-construction stage, and because of the uncertainties in pre-construction. So, like, you know, we are in a housing crisis, especially in Wales, social housing, England, social, but just in general, they're not building enough homes, you know, and now they're just lowering the target. So you're always on the back foot. And because of how long it takes you to get planning permission, and literally planning permission can change last minute, like it did on this site, you cannot commit to all the cost and investment and getting detailed designs or investing in all of this modern methods when all of a sudden it could change. So we're using some modern methods that have been declined at planning. So you've got these external factors you can't control, and then when you're in a social housing crisis and everyone's saying build, 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 you literally then have to resort to methods you know are going to work as well. So
I think though as well, you know, with the housing crisis, you'd think that they'd want to try and integrate technology to fast track that if there's a housing crisis. But how long do you think that housing crisis is going to last? Because I was looking at some stats before, and global fertility rates have dropped in free fall since like the 40s and 50s. So people are having less children. Yeah, so you know, if you listen to like Elon Musk and stuff, they're like, have as many kids as possible because we're going to have an issue at some point. And I seen some guy did a diagram, and he said you could fit the entire world population on one floor in New York City. So there's an abundance of land. It's just
in the mile,
with the line, but I understand like the lack of resources potentially with food and stuff. But you know, if those fertility rates are still dropping, at some point there's going to be an equilibrium where it's like, right, we don't have a population crisis anymore. Is there a lack of housing, or do we have too much housing? So when do you think that could, how far away do you think we are from that?
It's funny that I went to a talk and I heard an economist talk about something like that, and they did these studies and graphs and all the statistics to show actually if you reutilize the housing stock kind of as it is, and focus on he was going on about some different, but basically if you reutilize the existing housing stock as it is and focus on especially bringing back into play the vacant and empty and derelict buildings that could be housing rather than new housing, it will go a phenomenal way to actually reducing the housing crisis anyway, but also without affecting the atmosphere so much. Yeah. So like building here is really carbon intensive, and which is obviously another big problem. But to answer your question, the only thing I can say is there's two conflicting sides whenever you look at data, and whoever talks about it. It depends what consultant's on board telling you if there's an underpopulation problem coming, or if there's an housing crisis. It's like it depends on who's, you know what it's like with politicians and lobbying and stuff like that, is they'll invest money into a consultant who create but look, that's going into conspiracy. So let's leave that. To answer your question bluntly, obviously from our focus, we working with housing associations, you can see the housing waiting list, and whether the target of 300,000 homes a year is not needed anyway, one thing's for sure, in Wales, like where we are, you know, they in terms of new build social housing in the last year, the Office of National Statistics, you know, was between 1.5 and 2,000 homes, right? Where that by far doesn't matter what study you look at, is underbuilding, is not enough. There's 70,000 people on the waiting list. So
in Wales there's a lot of green, isn't there? There's still a lot of land vacant, but you can put these houses on.
But it's not developable land. It's not developable land.
There won't be much left.
It will be.
So there's enough land, but that's a really sensitive topic. You know, it's really sensitive.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Again, so this is 3 2-bedders. 1, 2, 3.
What sort of garden space do you aim in?
40 square metres is a minimum for social housing requirements in Wales.
Oh, that's okay.
It's a minimum. Some of them are more than that.
2 car park spaces. Bedrooms in the property, isn't it?
So on here there'll be a minimum 2 spaces, or 1 per bedroom for the 1-bedroom flats. There'll be 1 space, and then the 2 for 2-bed or 3-bed, and then there's visitor space, should be 1 per 5.
Okay. So obviously the garden space will be behind these.
Yeah.
Again, over excavated by at least a metre. So they'll shutter in here, and they've got their garden space back to the back.
Yeah, and I think on the apartments, some of the ground floor ones may be disabled adapted.
It's crazy, right? 'Cause you think this is quite a large space. Like, you know, you could cram a lot more than 35. I understand this regulations.
No,
right?
you're right. We went in initially for 40, and it was knocked back from planning.
Really?
So I think people really need to understand when you're getting involved in development, do not underestimate the planning process. Because if they say no, and obviously, and if you want to appeal a decision at the moment, it takes 9 months on average. So this is one of the biggest reasons why we are in a housing crisis. The government are not investing in the public sector for the planning department. And all I would say, from a business point of view, is why don't they just increase the plan? We'll happily pay more planning application fees as long as they bring more staff in. But
do you think though, a lot of the high streets, especially the small ones, you know, like especially Wales, you know, for some reason, they never sign nothing off for planning, and this you could reutilise all of it. Like, you know, if you look at, say, any town centre like Ebervale town centre or Merthyr or whatever, you know, you're looking at these town centres and they're becoming like derelict, right? Why don't planning departments look at those and be like, look, we need to repurpose this, right? Because either they're going to turn into fulfilment centres for Amazon or other companies, or why don't we just make them residential?
So we got a problem in town centre. We've done some development, and the planning policy stipulates that in those particular areas the ground floor can be changed to residential, but the upstairs might be fine. So therefore we've actually had to do schemes, which we've done now, where we've got a vacant commercial, even though we've put in evidence to prove that no one will let it, because it's a terrible time for commercial. But we've got a vacant commercial unit. We've done the residential part of the schemes, all gone, and it's because it comes back down to planning policy. It's
crazy, right? When you think of all that space. Yeah, the infrastructure's already there. It's like, let's just make this residential. But I think, especially, it's a lot of towns around the UK, but Wales, when you look at these valleys towns, like, you may as well make the most of the fact the building's already there.
Well, if you want to run for mayor, I'll back you.
Yeah. Sometimes it's cheaper to start from scratch though than it is to regenerate a building. Again, legislations that we've got to comply to bring that up to standards, put the insulation values in, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes cheaper just to put a hole in the ground and build a new one. I
suppose obviously you guys will know more about this, but with the drainage too, I suppose some of those high streets, if you turn that, say, one building into, say, 14, 15 apartments, I suppose, would the drainage would allow for? It's a lot.
Like on here, you know, we've had to upgrade the substation because Western Power, even though so I'll give you a prime example of how, like, there's a broad goal set, but then the individual details are not being worked out. It's just as you go along. So in social housing is, don't build in gas anymore, build everything in electric. Fine, okay, this scheme 100% electric. Western Power gets involved, not enough electricity capacity for that. You have to upgrade the substation. Right, okay, brilliant. Yeah, and you as the developer are paying for it. They're like, well, we'll turn it to gas.
They were on site this morning, that's why I met.
Yeah. We're like, well, all right, we'll put it into gas then. And then the government's like, no. No gas allowed in social housing. So you're like, so you said, so we have to pay for this then, and it's not cheap.
Also, I've noticed a lot of the developments now. Is it? Don't they have to, like, certain developments have to build schools and?
Contributions and.
If you, like, obviously to come off the road there, if this looks like it's the main road, right? But sometimes.
Section 278 highway agreement, that takes 6 months. That's different to planning, and you have to pay a bond, which is 100% of the construction cost.
You know when you started this site?
Yeah.
How many years ago?
So this site is a fast site, actually. We've been working on this for 2 years.
Fast? 2 years to get to today?
Yeah, to today.
That's insane.
You know?
Your stress threshold.
We've combated it by building a really large pipeline that we keep scaling, so we've become a little bit insulated from, if this was your only site, and for most developers who are small, they only have 1, 2 or 3 sites, and you get knocked on by 6 months, which happens. We literally, on a different site, have just been knocked back 6 months because the planning officer, after a year, has actually turned around and said, you have to start again or we're refusing the scheme. They won't let us resubmit the amendment. Anyway, I'm digressing, but long story short, you have planning to deal with, which can take literally years. SAB, which is surface water drainage, which is a separate consent you need. You have highways consent, because we could have planning here and SAB, but then if highways weren't happy, we legally can't start either. So yeah, it's a lot. If you want to be a developer, then you need to have patience.
Patience in a relationship game by the sounds of it.
Yeah, loads of cash. Because I'm not underplaying here. You need a lot of money.